Dan, perfectly on time. Welcome to our first webinar to Codebeamer today. My name is Peter Welberg. I'm the founder of W-ITC, and with me here in the room is Grzegorz Pasławski, one of our IT consultants. And we will guide you through today's webinar, which is about navigating compliance, Codebeamer in regulated industries. And let's have a look at the agenda, what we will do today. First of all, we will go over the V model. Don't be scared away. We will not explain you the V model in detail because you probably know the V model pretty well. So I will just demonstrate on the V model how Codebeamer can help you in your regulated industries. Then we will go over the basics of ALM, Codebeamer, and go to the risk management capabilities, the introduction to test management, and at the end, we will have enough time for a quick QA session. So if you have any questions. One more thing that you have to know is that this webinar will be recorded and will be shared later online. So that if you want to revisit it later on, you can always do that. And also you can reach to us out later if you have any questions to the topics that are covered in the webinar. Now let's jump directly into it, and I will just share only the slides so that you have that better on. So here's the V model, which you probably know. It starts on the left side with all the requirements, which are in the early stage. Then it will go to the detailed design. It will go over into the implementation, where you have the direct connection. Then it will be implemented, tested, and then hopefully delivered at the end of the day. Codebeamer offers here in that V model the possibility to be on both sides and have the end-to-end traceability, as we call it. And you have then the possibility later in your tests, in your documentation, if you find an issue, track that over even your code that you have checked into Git and map it back to your requirements. And you can track back to your requirements, which is really easy. And one more important thing, if you find an issue later on in your documents or in your requirements, then you can easily change it, which is actually really important if you're in a regulated industry and have to follow standards to have the documentation at the beginning. So you can easily and automatically changes the requirements at the beginning if you do changes at the end. And now let's focus directly at the start on the advantages of the Codebeamer for the regulated industry. You see all of them. Don't be scared. I will not read them out line by line to you. I will just go over that you have a little bit of impression. A lot of them will be later on covered in other webinars or will covered by Grzegorz here later in his live presentation of Codebeamer. We have the end-to-end traceability, which I already mentioned. It not only means that you have the end-to-end traceability, it means also that you have which is important, audit secure tracking from the beginning of the requirements to the end of risks, issues, and to the delivery of your product. What else do we have? We have the scalability built in. Codebeamer is compatible with SAFe. So you also have the integration of the SAFe framework, for example, or of others. So you can work with small teams, you can work with big teams. Both is easily supported from Codebeamer. And then we have the requirement management, which is obviously because they showed you the left side. But what is important, Codebeamer comes with a lot of templates, which helps you to fulfill all of those regulated standards in your industry. It is for ISO 26262, for ASPICE, and so on and so on. You see all of those standards here highlighted in the third box. Then we have the risk mitigation. It helps you, as I also mentioned at the end, to track the risk, identify the risk, identify the hazards. Grzegorz will show that a little bit later in the software itself. We have collaborative environment, which means it's easy to communicate for the team in between. You have workflows in place. For example, if your product goes to the next step and it has to be verified by other persons, you can build that in your workflow, that it be to a specific user or to a specific role be assigned, and that person has to be double checked, for example. And it helps you to really implement that workflow. The quality insurance is also there. You have to track all of those things. You can easily go back. You can find the issues. You have automated testing. You have manual testing. You have the integration with check-ins, which will also be covered later on. And nevertheless, you also see the V model, but that's not all that is supported by Codebeamer. It also supports agile, waterfall, and hybrid approaches as well. And also, as I mentioned already, the workflow is highly customizable. And with that, I show you one more overview over what that ALM tool looks like. And here you actually see from where to where Codebeamer supports you in your journey. And Codebeamer, I know it's an ALM tool, but actually Codebeamer is much more than an ALM tool, because with Codebeamer, it is not only that you can take care about applications, you can create hardware with that. You can track your all different sorts of products that have to have a competitive requirements, which have to have like a really detailed testing and an audit secure way. For all of that, you could use Codebeamer. So again, I don't want to annoy you, but Codebeamer is much more than just an application lifecycle management tool. We start on the left by the demand management, which I also covered a little bit, because there you have all your requirements. In the requirement management, one super interesting feature is the first thing that we have here under requirement engineering, the round trip. On and offline, working with Microsoft Word and Excel. What does that mean? You can still migrate to Codebeamer, but use your Word and Excel document, because you can put your requirements in a Word template that you, for example, have, then upload that with the round trip to Codebeamer. And then in Codebeamer, you can easily also later on export it. You can do the changes there, send it to a vendor, for example, or use it in other parts of your company. It has a requirement library with reuse, which means if you create a product that or create several products that all have to fulfill the standards of your industry, then you can put down those requirements and share that between the project easily, because you can make that a template, but they will probably be covered in a later session. Software and hardware deployment was also already mentioned. I will not go over everything. We have waterfall, you have the integration to Git, you have a release management, and you have a change and configuration management as well. Then also at the end, which is really important, especially in regulated industries, you have the Q&A and test management, which again helps you to track to the beginning, helps you to track to all the risks, help you to track to all the issues that you have. And again, if you have fulfill special requirements in testing, you can also reuse those tests, because all of those tests are reusable in between. So what else do we have? Last but not least, we have the release and the DevOps integration, which is totally given. And beside that, we have the analytics underline, because there is a competitive dashboard which gives you an easy overview also over all the test cases, all the regulations that you met, and so on. And with all of those stuff that I have now told you, I would like to give over to Grzegorz to dig into the next steps, and then also later on go into the software.
All right, so hello everybody. As Peter already introduced myself, I am Grzegorz, I'm the IT consultant here. And before we jump into the Codebeamer itself, I would like to touch on one more topic regarding the Codebeamer itself. Because Codebeamer offers a really vast range of integration capabilities with the external software. And for example, you can easily integrate it with other PTC software, for example, like Windshield, but also there is a lot of core integrations with the other software you probably use in your company, like Office tools, like Jira, Git, like AWS, like Azure, and so on. And these core integrations are really helpful for you because they are already integrated into the Codebeamer, and they are maintained and developed by the PTC team. So all of them are easily accessible, and you can find them really helpful in your journey through the Codebeamer software. On the other hand, there is possibility to access the custom integrations, for example, with MATLAB or with the others external software that will provide you with, let's say, great opportunity for software hardware integrations, for example. But you have to remember that these integrations are developed by the third-party engineers. So if you want to use them in your company, you will probably have to reach out to someone who will help you integrate them. And in this matter, we are here to help you. So if you want to integrate your Codebeamer with some third-party technical solution, we're here to help. And with that in mind, we can jump directly to Codebeamer to show you some hands-on examples. Okay, so in Codebeamer today we will be working on the automotive template, but keep in mind that you can also find other templates, like for example for avionics, for healthcare, and other high-tech industries. You just have to reach out to PTC or to some partners, like for example W-ITC, to help you customize the template for your needs. So right now we're jumping into the automotive template. We will do a quick overview of the topics that we've touched on a moment ago. And we're here inside of the project. By default, we are in the wiki page, but what's interesting for us today is the trackers tree. Trackers are basically the bloodstream of the whole Codebeamer project. They are built-in type of items that are necessary to store the information inside. So with each of them have configurable fields, they have access permissions, they can store references and other associations or related work items. So it's basically a container that helps you store everything you need inside. So with end-to-end traceability in mind, we will try to keep the presentation in that way. So when we start the project, we have some idea or some general requirements. And in Codebeamer, the requirements have their own specific type of tracker, which I will show you in a moment, because in this automotive template, we have a general overview of the project already prepared. So there are some trackers with the requirements already inside them. And as soon as we load, which is just now, we are presented with the document view of the tracker. In the document view, you will be able to see the tracker just like you would probably describe the requirements inside of Word document. So in the middle panel, we see the headers with brief descriptions about them. On the left, there is a panel with the tracker tree where we can easily navigate between different trackers. And we can see that while clicking on the tracker on the left, in the middle, we are taken directly to this tracker. And on the right, the details of the tracker are already loading. In this details panel, we'll be able to see what are the parameters of the tracker. So its status, its type, its releases, who is it assigned to, what are the references for the tracker, and so on. What's really useful about Codebeamer is the fact that these fields in these trackers are customizable. So we can access the configuration panel of the tracker. And as soon as we enter it, we will be able to see a few bookmarks that will help us navigate through this configuration panel and check what can be changed in order to improve the tracker for our needs. Inside this configuration panel, we see, as I've mentioned, the bookmarks on top. We have the general information about the tracker in here. We can set up the permissions according to different roles in the project. So we see on the top, there are a few roles that are available to be assigned to the users. And for each tracker, we can customize the permissions so that we can keep our project secure. We also can customize state transitions, so not only states, but also the transitions. And again, we can customize everything in here and see the graphical overview of the workflow beside it. And we can also see the fields bookmark in which we can customize what will be visible within the tracker, which fields will be able to change, which are obligatory, which are not, and who will have access to each field. So it's all up to you to customize it to your needs. We also have some other bookmarks that we will not look into today, but they also help you manage the project in the way you want and keep track of everything from the very beginning to the very end. So now that we know what are the trackers and how do they work, we can take a quick look at how the tests are managed within the Codebeamer. Okay, so let us find some kind of the test trackers. This is the tracker containing the test cases, and the tests in Codebeamer are actually tests in general in development are really important because working in regulated industries, you have to remember that the whole development process needs to be maintained and standardized in order to reach and fulfill the requirements that are set by the standardizing bodies or any other industry standards that you have to reach. So with that in mind, preparing the tests is really important part of creating the project, as this is the stage which will determine whether your project or your product can be released or not. So the view is quite similar to what we've seen inside of the requirements. So we see the name of the test case, the brief description of it, and we can also expand the field to see the test steps for the test case as soon as it will load. Okay, so we see that there are 5 test steps for this specific item, and we can see the action that needs to be defined and the expected result that is the indicator for the tester of what should they expect. And also on the right, we can also see that there is detailed page for the test case. So we also see the fields in the similar manner as we've seen them for the requirements, but because the field itself is designed for the test case, there are other fields to be filled than in case of the requirement. For example, we see the pre-action, post-action, or test parameter cases. And we also see the references, so we directly see in which test set this one case is contained and which requirement is verified by this test case. And what's also quite useful about the tests is that we can directly from them create a new test case, a new test run, sorry. Because creating a test case is one case, but having all this data, we can easily create a new test run that will be later executed by the tester. While this section is loading, I will also show you how you can easily access the test cases directly from the requirements section, because it's also quite useful. We're going back to the requirement tracker that we've been in a moment ago. And each requirement can easily be either tracked to the downstream references that are connected to it, or can be generated into the test case just from the requirements panel. We'll keep that one open for later. And inside of the test case configuration panel, we see the exact same fields as were visible inside of the details panel a moment ago. But we also have the possibility to create item from this template. So if you want to create a similar test case, we can create create a template and use it later, or we can create new test run directly from this test case. For this presentation, we will use test runs that are already here. So, for example, we have the test runs. We'll take a look at the two of them, because one of them is already executed. So in case of this test run, we will see the results that are already inside. We see that 4 steps have passed and 1 has failed. And here the tester printed not only the indication from the Codebeamer whether the test passed or not, but we can also see the actual result described in detail. And what's really important here is the fact that when the test case is failed, then the whole result is failed. And based on this failed indicator, the Codebeamer recognizes that something went wrong. So the tester has a direct prompt to indicate what went wrong, what was the conclusion from the test, and report some kind of bug that occurred during the test. And we can easily check what is the traceability report from this test run, so we can see what is affected by this failed test. And in this case, we have a test that is not yet executed, so it's pretty much empty. Right here, the first result is only failed. And based on the information that we can find here, you can easily track what's going on within the project, identify any issues, any hazards, and basically all the people who are managing the project and keeping everything in touch have everything in one place. So not only the testers work in one environment, but also all the management staff. And now, seeing how the tests can be created and how to work with them, we will take a quick look at what is the outcome of such tests. Because as I've mentioned, after we have the test failed, we will probably want to indicate it in the manner of a bug or a hazard, something like that. And for that, we'll take a look at the risk tracker. And once again, we have already populated tracker within the template. So taking a look at it, we will see that for our risk tracker, we have by default set the table view. We can also switch to the document view and look at it as previously in case of the requirements or the tests. But if we have more fields that we want to access directly, then the table view might be more suitable for such analysis. So we have the hazard name and we have system element that is affected by this hazard, potential malfunctions that might occur for these elements, parameters of the risk, such as, for example, exposure or controllability, and operational situations. So here we can provide a description when or how to recreate such hazard, such bug, and so on. And we see that there are some of them, they have assigned all the parameters. For example, sometimes you can also see that there are more malfunctions listed beside the hazard. What's important to note here is that the malfunction is the other type of tracker. It's way simpler in its description than the hazard tracker, but it contains all the necessary information that you might need for it to identify the issue. So based on that hazard, the team is able to create tasks about what should be fixed, what should be done in order for the project to be safe and to be released. And in that case, having the tests and hazards, we can take a look at the test coverage in the requirements. I'm jumping a bit, but the test coverage is basically the part of the requirements tracker that you come back to after the tests are created and you are sure that everything is ready. So having the test coverage opened, we can, for example, use the filters that I have already here, and we should be able to see how the customer requirement specifications are covered inside of Codebeamer. And in that case, we see that we have omitted all of the tests, or none of them has completely passed. So we see that the customer requirement specifications are not covered. That is the indicator for the management team that the tests need to be developed and everything has to be checked. We can set the filters for any set of requirements that we have. And with this tool, we can easily check which tests are to be run yet in order for the project to be completely developed. And having all that, having the requirements, the tests, the hazards, and so on, we can create reports that will indicate the information that we've gathered in a more suitable manner. Basically, the report bookmark is a general bookmark for the whole Codebeamer instance, not the one for the project. So the reports can be created without the necessity to jump between the projects. So if you are working on more than one project, you can do everything from one bookmark. Now let's take a look at the project we are looking at. So for example, let's take a look at our automotive template, at the tracker that we are currently looking at, so customer requirement specification. And for example, let's add filter with status, and let's look at resolved requirements. And hopefully we should be able to see that there are 3 requirements with the status waiting for approval. So it's understood by Codebeamer as status resolved. So we can create the reports with more than one filter. We can add grouping or ordering. We can basically customize the report to our need. And then after we save it, we can go back to the project and add the report to the project to be visible at the start page or somewhere in the wiki. Usually the dashboards are a great place to display the information, because for example, here based on some of the saved reports, we can see how such pie charts with statuses can be visualized and indicate directly what is the progress on the whole project. And we can also add new widgets with other information based on the reports. There is quite a lot of them, so we'll not go deeper into that, but it's important to keep in mind that you can visualize the information in pretty much any way you find suitable for your project, depending on whether you're working on software project, hardware project, in waterfall, in hybrid, in agile. It's all up to you. So with our Codebeamer presentation, I believe that with these hands-on examples, we will be done for today. So going back to the presentation right now, and I'm giving the voice back to Peter. So from my side, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Grzegorz, for your nice presentation. It was awesome. I think it helped a lot. One thing that I also wanted to mention is like we are also sharing in the next days some articles how Codebeamer can help you with your GAMP5 with patient and medical science. So that's also something we will do. And if you have any follow-up questions, then please have a follow-up with us. There is the contact@W-ITC email address, which you see in the middle of the screen. But beside that, there is also my private email address and also a phone number if you want to ping us directly. So also if you have questions now, you can ping them in the chat below, or if you don't have any questions now, yeah, you can ping us later on offline. Then we have like 2 more things that we wanted to share with you, because I do not see any questions yet in the chat. So one thing that we want to share with you is that this is only the first one, as I mentioned at the beginning, of a series of webinars that we will hold to the team to the topic Codebeamer. So the next one will be focused on security, securing success, security, and integration capabilities of Codebeamer, which will take place next Wednesday at the same time like today. And besides that, we have another save the date, so you save next week. at 3 p.m. and also save yourself the 26th. The date here is not correct. It will not be the 27th. It will be the 26th of June in your calendar, because there we will have a live event and a nice networking event here in Wrocław at our office. So I would happy to see most of you there, or as lot as possible of you. And if there are still no questions here in the audience, it seems that Grzegorz, you did a great job and presented that are awesome, so that every questions are answered on the fly. Nevertheless, if you have some, reach out to us. We are always happy to help. And that it is, I would say. So that's from our side. Then I would like to thank you all for participating, and I wish you a nice evening, and I hope the weather is a little bit better at your place than it is here, because it should be starting raining soon. Then take care and have a nice evening.